everyone, and welcome back to the World Builders podcast, where I'm joined by my co-host, Isaac.
Potato.
No, I that's not the one I thought you were going to welcome with, so I'm grateful you didn't do the one I thought you were going to.
No.
There it is. Anyways, if you're confused about that, watch our last episode, and then you won't be. But today we're not exploring that world anymore, but exploring a new one, which hopefully will not make me want to kill myself as much as the last one did. What's our topic for this week, Isaac?
What if the world was inside out?
Ew. It's my first thought. So do we mean like just the world itself, or also everything living in the world?
Everything living in the... Well, no, not everything living in the world. Like, the world itself is inside out, and everything is now living inside of the world.
Okay, so...
Because on the outside would be, like, lava. So, not really a good place
So, somehow, this world its heat is coming from the outside, and I guess it cools as it comes down to the core?
Well, there's two options. One is the heat is coming from the outside, and because it's covered in lava, that could very well heat the inside. But I was thinking on the inside, you also need some sort of light source. So what if, I'm not talking about turning this whole solar system inside out, but what if there was like, the core of the Earth was more like a mini sun?
The core of the Earth was a mini sun?
Yeah, because you would need some form of light source.
Well, yeah, but I feel like we would be baked very quickly.
That's why it's a mini sun.
Do you know how hot even a mini sun would be?
It's a very mini sun.
That doesn't mean... What about, like, the radioactiveness that would be coming off that sucker? We get sunburned from the sun that's thousands and millions of miles away. What do you think it's going to do when one pops up in the center of Earth?
It'll keep us warm through the winter.
And then also kill us with cancer in about 2-3 years.
I mean, yeah, maybe, because we wouldn't have an atmosphere at that point. Like, if it's just a ball of air. So what's our light source then?
I don't know, you could go with the classic glowy crystals. Which are probably also radioactive, but very lightly so. I feel like it's a general rule that everything that glows is slightly radioactive, it seems.
We could do that. How about there's a crystal pillar, or maybe multiple pillars that lead up to the center of the Earth, and they give off a faint light.
That could work. So how big...
And maybe they also... What?
So the world's inside out, so the inside of the Earth cave, is still pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of space inside the Earth.
Yeah.
It's just that it's now all hollowed out, and everybody's walking on the walls.
Well, why would we be walking on the walls?
Because where else would you go to? Because otherwise, if the gravity was in the center of the Earth, then everybody would just be falling towards empty space.
Okay, yeah. So, are you saying that the gravity of this world is also now transferred to the outside?
Yeah, like the gravity is reversed, basically.
I mean, but this is also the Earth, so, I mean, we walk on the walls, technically, of the planet, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, it probably wouldn't feel like...
If there's no mass on the inside, and it's all on the outside, it still wouldn't be enough to the gravity would be reduced insanely. But let's assume that the gravity is the same, or we've adapted so that the gravity affects us the same as it does here.
Yeah.
So let's just assume that. And so we're able to walk on the walls.
So, okay. But it wouldn't feel like walking on walls, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't.
Because it's like it's just like Earth. It's just that, like, us walking on...
Yeah, it's just that the difference here is you can look upwards and see the other side of the planet.
Can you, though? Isn't the distance so far away you can't? Or is it in the sense that...
Well, it would depend on how much pollution there is in the air, because if there's too much pollution, then eventually you wouldn't be able to see the other side of the planet. But if it's very clear and there's no pollution in the air, then you could very well see clear to the other side.
Okay. Well, normally the only reason why we can see stars and stuff is just they're really, really bright. And it's light. We see the light, not necessarily, like... We could see lights. We can't see a rock on the other side of the Earth, even if it was a perfectly clear day, because our eyesight just can't do that. But we can see light from that far, because our light is amazing, not our eyes. Light's the thing doing it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't see this being a very bright world, actually, because if it's lit up by crystals.
So what's keeping the lava on the outside of this world
The crust.
contained?
The crust.
The crust?
The crust of the Earth, just big, like, just rocks.
So is it lava and then like a thin layer of rock encasing the Earth?
Maybe not a thin layer, but
well, you know what layer. I mean. Like, in comparison to other layers, it would be a thin layer. Mind you, it would probably be a few miles deep, but it's still a thin layer in relation to everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have so it's thin layer, lava, probably some other, like, rock cooling down until you get dirt, and then us inside.
Yep.
How are we getting here? Is it just plants?
If there's plants on the inside of the planet.
How are the plants getting oxygen. Sunlight?
They're getting crystal light.
So plants are now eat off of crystals?
Well, the light, yes.
Well, light is different
If it produces the correct type of light, then plants would have no problem.
Yeah, because there is a difference between, like, light and sunlight. I could put my plant in front of a lamp and it would still die from starvation because the lamp does not provide food.
But you can get, like, certain lights that will work. Like, arrow gardens use artificial lighting to grow plants.
Yes, but this is a world where it formed like this. So we can't have inventions that allow this to happen. The world has always been this way.
It's not. I'm saying that the crystals put off the kind of light we need.
Okay, so the crystals are like
scientists. So I don't know exactly what kind of light that is, but
yeah, I know what you mean. I did a whole study on it for a paper, and then lost said paper to someone who wrote a cute story. I didn't realize it was a creative writing competition. I'm not bitter about it. Anyways.
Yeah, I knew what kind of light it was many years ago in physics class, but that was like 6 years ago, maybe.
Mine was a bit more recent than that, but I still don't remember what it was called. I was more focused on the fact that we were doing it. So
yeah, I'm not sure when exactly I did it.
Yeah, but I'm surprised not like more development hasn't been occurring for that because it's such a space saver.
Okay. Anyway, so we got the lights and the crystals.
We know how plants are working. I'm assuming this will be affecting the humans and animals' eyesight in the sense that we have better night vision.
Most likely.
I'm assuming it's like you know how pirates they wear the eye patch because when they're in the daylight, one eye is adjusted to the day, and then they go like under thing, and they just switch the eye patch around, so that way they can see the darkness of their cabin, and they already have an eye pre-adjusted. I just assume we're always just in that pre-adjusted to darkness state.
Probably, although the whole eye patch thing, I don't know if that's true, because that's probably the 10th explanation I've heard on why eye patches were worn by pirates. I hear so many explanations. Some people say, no, it's because their eyes are injured. No, it's because they looked at the sun too much and they damaged their eye. No, they have one eye for looking at the sun and the other one they keep working fine with eye patches. No, so many explanations as to why pirates wear eye patches. Anyway, off topic.
My source is Mythbusters. Take that as you will.
They're a pretty reliable source.
I feel like. So that's that. Crystals that, so I'm assuming food just grows normally. How about color? I'm assuming things would lose color. Just because
Why would they lose color?
Because for one, when things lose when you're in a dark area, you don't see colors as well. It's just a fact. And then it tends to, especially if you look at creatures that live in the caves, they tend not to have color because they no longer need it, and then they kind of do their natural selection tends to actually take out those with less color, because those with more colors become targets in caves and stuff because they stand out a lot. But then again, if we're in a forest like underground with lots of bright colored trees and stuff, then maybe having bright colors is still a good thing. It's just they're faded. Or on a lesser spectrum? A darker spectrum?
Maybe? I guess so. So, something else I was thinking about for this world, transportation.
Okay.
If you wanted, because the world is inside out,
Mm-hmm.
and what if you wanted to get from one side of the world clear to the other side? And now we've got these pillars that connect different points in the world. What if those were used as a transportation method?
So, kind of like how we want to build a highway over the Atlantic?
I have not heard of that.
It's never, I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it is a dream of some people. So, it's like that, though, right?
Yeah, kind of. What I was thinking, like, the way it might work is it would be something like a gondola system. But it would have this, okay, so this is going to be hard for me to explain,
okay.
But because the gravity would change based on your location, and by going to the center of the Earth and everything, what would have to happen is you're like, I was imagining like maybe there's this hollowed out, these hollowed out tubes almost, these hollowed out shafts inside of the crystal pillars where you can step into one, and it has this multi-wheeled round swinging gondola where it's attached to the crystal, and then when you start moving up through the crystal, because it's on this wheel system, it would actually automatically swing around and rotate based on where the gravity is, so that people aren't suddenly sitting in an upside down cart.
Yeah.
It would automatically rotate itself so that people don't really feel too much in the way of gravity.
So, out of curiosity, is there like a center point in which there is no gravity?
I guess that would be the dead center of the Earth.
Okay.
But I imagine the closer to the center of the Earth you get, you might also experience less gravity.
Okay.
Cause, it's like you're getting pulled in every direction.
Yeah.
And you're also further away from the landmass.
Yeah. Also, so this is just one giant cave, right? It's not like a million little ones.
Yeah, I'm thinking one giant cave. I mean, you could make a bunch of little ones throughout the pillar. That would work too.
I like the idea of it being... I feel like it fits the inside out more if it's just one giant cave. So that means there's oceans, right? Still?
I would think so.
Okay. You can look up and you just see some people do have blue skies. It's just water.
Yeah. Oh, but how would clouds work? Like, would there be clouds? I don't think so, because you don't have a sun to evaporate them.
Oh, yeah, so how would you do rain and stuff?
Unless maybe there are some areas where, like, the heat from the outside of the Earth is
I almost feel like there'd be constant mist from that. Like, yeah, I feel like this is a very tropical world. It just has to. You have lava surrounding you, and you're kind of being baked, but there's, I'm sure, things that keep it cool, like distance and maybe some other, who knows, sciencey stuff going on that keeps it cool. But at the same time, and one of those things that would keep it cool is if this world was always misty. You live forever in mist. You're always wet, and you just accept this.
Like the humidity is just so high.
Yeah,
that's just annoying. We went from a really cool world to a really annoying world.
Yeah, but mine's more
realistic. And if there's so much mist, you can't just look up and see the ocean anymore. Now you look up and you see fog.
Yeah, well, at least this world's now slightly more interesting.
I feel like it made it less interesting.
I don't think so, because now you have to deal with the mist. And that means some plants won't grow. There's certain plants that like water, and there are some plants that absolutely hate humidity and mist. You probably wouldn't get cactuses in this world. Or stuff. You would get a lot of tropical plants. The entire world kind of becomes the tropics.
Okay, so there's high humidity now.
Yep.
Good luck starting a fire.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't want to, at least for heating wise anyways, because it's hot already.
Cooking.
Yeah. For cooking, though, you would want to. I'm sure people can find a way. How would we start fires then if everything was pretty much always wet?
I mean, is mining still a thing? I would assume so.
I'd imagine so.
Like, if you've got miles and miles of like crust, then you shouldn't have a problem mining somewhat to get resources.
Yeah, mining.
Uh,
I feel like it's just like our Earth in the sense that you're just mining out instead of in, and
yeah,
you just have to. It gets hotter even faster than it does here. So on the
yeah.
outside, we can go quite a ways deep before we really start feeling the heat and have to turn back. But for these guys, it doesn't. Also, just traveling. I'd imagine traveling to the other side of the world, with quotation marks around it, is quicker because it's not like us who have to go across the globe. It's like
It's
if
a
you,
straight shot.
yeah, it's like if you drilled that hole to China we keep talking about, and you jump down it. That's what it's that distance. So that's the time. So you get across. I'm wondering if it would take long. No, I guess it wouldn't take longer for that. But for a second, I thought it would take longer to get. Actually, it might be because you get a straight line to go to the other side of the world, but you have to go at a curve to get to like a fourth of the way to the world, unless you have intersections. And how does the central pillar thing look?
I was
Crystals?
imagining a whole bunch of pillars clashing together with crystals like growing into each other, and then the inside is carved and hollowed out.
So is it like a spear of them? But how many of these are there? I'd imagine there'd be at least the core two that go from like east to west and like the main central points. But are there more than also branching off of those?
I was imagining at least 50.
Okay, and is it? I'm assuming it's very. I don't know what the word is. The word is when it's exactly the same on one side as it is the other. Whatever that word is.
Symmetrical?
That's not. I don't think it's. Is symmetrical right? There's another word that I'm looking for that's not quite symmetrical. But I cannot think of the word at the moment.
Perfectly balanced. Yeah. As all things should be.
Yeah. So I'm imagining it's like that. Which is a bit weird for crystals to grow like that, but you know. I'm sure these people don't mind.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a little bit convenient.
Also, I almost feel like
there might be more than 50 because if you want to give everybody access to the ability to travel from point A to point B easily,
you need quite a few. I mean, think about it. On just in America, I'd imagine it'd be a bit smaller just because it is on the inside, so it has to be smaller. But I wouldn't imagine it being that much smaller. I don't know. It depends on how we're flipping, how we're inside outing this thing, or at what point do we make the air? How much of the air are we counting in this inside out switch? I guess.
The air.
Like the atmosphere. Like at what point? Because when you flip something inside out, you're putting the outside in. So how much of the air, which is expanding around the world, are we saying is part of the Earth and therefore gets stuck in the middle because it's right now at the outside? How much of our atmosphere goes in there, and that would decide the size, which would be smaller because right now that atmosphere is thinly across a very big sphere of dirt. But when it gets compressed inside, it shrinks.
I'm not saying that we have an exact amount of like everything on our planet is put into this planet. We've already got like magic growing crystals that keep plants alive.
No, I'm just saying size. No, the big point of this is the size of it. Like it's inside out. We have an inside out Earth. Like the air is on the inside. So I'm saying whatever math that is, that's how big our world should be.
Okay.
I don't know
I
any of that math.
Make it a little smaller, but okay.
It is a lot smaller than you think. It's a lot smaller than it is right now, but not. I'd say maybe it's like anywhere between a fourth to a half of what we have now, distance-wise.
What if we just say it's the size of the Halo ring from Halo, but it's spherical instead of a ring?
I don't know. I don't do Halo.
Oh.
That example.
Well, in Halo, you are actually able to see. If you look up, you can actually see the other side of the ring. It's like a donut-shaped planet, basically.
It's a really small world. What are we going to do when overpopulation hits? Because it's going to hit faster. Especially when this world has a lot of oceans still, too.
Well, the weird thing about population is, like, the world basically, for some reason, tries to balance itself out when it comes to population. Sometimes you do get overpopulation, but a lot of the time what happens is if the population were suddenly cut in half, the population would actually start to skyrocket again. Yeah. But once it starts to reach its capacity, it slows down. It's really weird and complicated, and I don't
think it's that
all
complicated.
the details on it.
If you can't feed everyone, you can't feed everyone.
Yeah, I just know about it because I've seen some people using this to criticize Thanos' plan to get rid of
Thanos'
half the
plan is
life in the
stupid.
universe because within a few years that life would come right back.
So
Okay,
water's not a
so
problem, at least. Actually, that might actually help with us shrinking the world, because a lot of the ocean is now mist.
okay.
Yeah, so that actually allows us to shrink it and still say it's an inside version of Earth when we shrink it, because...
I imagine a way that people would collect water and stuff is they would have something like a cloth sort of set up that would just collect the mist and then they wring it out.
Yeah, that'd probably be extremely efficient.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
just thinking
also
that could be.
imagine that there'd be kind of mountain-like areas which are less misty. I feel like the closer you get to the center, the cooler it gets. So things that have more earth in between them and the lava ring, therefore cool off and have less mist. It's only when you're like in the deeper sections or the caverns and stuff. That's when you get the mist and the extreme heat. Though this world is definitely, it just has to be warmer than our Earth is.
Is there
Personally.
anyone living in the center of the Earth?
In the very center, we agreed that the center of the Earth
Well,
was
maybe not the
gravity.
dead center, but like on the outer part of the crystal in the center of the Earth.
Well, yeah. Why? How else do we get your gondola things that transport people
I
about?
mean, I was thinking maybe there would be some people operating it. Like it might be like some buildings and stuff up there, but not necessarily people living up there. But what?
What do you mean by up there? Where are the people living
Well,
in your
if you were
head?
to look up,
Yeah.
there it is. That's what I'm thinking.
You mean like the very, very center?
Yeah, the center of
The
the Earth.
center, the gravity list zone?
Pretty much, yeah.
No, yeah, I wouldn't imagine people. That's probably head of transportation, which I imagine is a very important and big department. We might have a headquarters there. Also, studies have been done about what lack of gravity does to a human body. So, I don't think you should live
Uh,
there.
yeah, I mean it is
It's not good,
bad. I
guys.
read it. I read a whole choose your own adventure book where it was about an astronaut going to Mars, and it was they actually consulted somebody who traveled to Mars to
No one,
get to get things accurate.
nobody's traveled to Mars before.
But that's what this one was. Maybe it was like an astronaut traveled to the moon. It was an astronaut that did something.
No one
I
has
thought that they did
ever
go to
been on
Mars.
Mars before.
Maybe I'm thinking the moon. I thought that, has
Yeah,
that
we've
not
been on the
happened?
moon. Yes. We've been on the moon, Isaac, but no one has been to Mars. We've sent rovers to Mars.
What else do we need to do
Housing.
with this?
What do you build?
What?
What do you build when everything's always wet? What do you build to keep moisture out? Because I imagine
Um,
instead in this world, instead of wanting showers, you want the opposite. You want to take like drying, like a vacuum. You want to be vacuumed.
dehumidifiers
Yeah, the
would be
opposite of a
very
shower.
popular.
Yes. In this inside out world, you don't take showers, but you get de-waterified.
We don't want steam rooms. We want de-steaming rooms.
We want rooms where we can breathe completely without feeling like we're breathing in water. But then again, there's the mattress, and the center, I'd imagine, is not misty at all, really.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of people who could like, see you later. I'm taking a trip. Oh, where are you going? I'm gonna go to the center of the earth, and I'm just gonna hang out there for the next few hours because I can breathe there. I'm gonna
So,
stop traffic.
oh, so this is actually an interesting concept. Does that mean that people don't build at like base level, but they build, I don't know, either along the crystal roads, like attaching their house to them, or build houses with very big foundations or like pillars to keep them up, however that would work. It's just so they
I
can be in
imagine.
less misty areas.
I imagine the people who live in taller houses and houses that are built further along the crystal pillar would actually those would probably be the more expensive houses, so that's where the more wealthy people would live.
Mm,
And the dirt poor people are stuck in the humidity.
stuck with hair that's untamable.
Yep.
I feel that.
And then they gotta climb their way through the ranks and through the pillars.
Honestly, I don't think long hair will ever be in style on this earth. I feel like everyone's cutting it short or just going bald.
Probably.
I mean, I was tempted. Actually, I did do it, but like I was tempted to really cut my hair short when I lived in Georgia because the humidity there. The heat's not bad in Georgia. The humidity is awful. And because if you go to Florida, Florida is actually nicer weather than Georgia despite it being hotter. Because Georgia has more humidity than Florida does. Because Florida has like those ocean breezes, and that kind of just pushes the humidity onto Georgia. So you die in Georgia, but in Florida you're fine even though the weather's hotter. Because it's the humidity that kills you. And my hair was not my friend at all when I lived there. It was awful. And I'm one of the lucky ones who it's not as bad for me as some people I know. Some people, they step out in humidity and they turn into puffballs. It's kind of funny.
For me, humidity is just, oh, it's humid. And then I move on. It doesn't bother me.
Maybe you haven't really experienced humidity because you get all sweaty and you overheat faster because you're sweating more.
I mean, if it's really humid and it's hot out, then
it's awful.
Yeah, it's bad.
Humidity is so bad. No, people say being in hot places is horrible. It's not. It's being in humid places that's horrible. Meaning the lower areas of this planet are probably just terrible. I'm sure there's some areas no one can even go into because they get baked alive.
Probably.
Yeah. So, do we have pillar houses? Like houses that aren't really attached to the crystals but are attached to the ground, but they're pushed up really, really high?
I would think so.
Do we get pillar
And you might have
communities?
like some sort of elevator system to get up there because that's a lot of stairs to climb.
That is a lot of stairs to climb. I mean, they might not go down. You could have whole entire pillar cities. It's kind of like Venice, which is over the lake. And also, something we have to do if we do get this, and I know it's really misty, but another side effect of humidity is thunderstorms. So.
But if all the clouds are at the bottom,
That's a good point.
Then does that mean that there's going to be lightning strikes all over the
floor?
The surface?
Well, we have to be careful with that because humans had to be able to live in this world just being put in the world without like anything added to them. They've just been put in here. Meaning we can't have that they would have died instantly if because of lightning striking the thunderstorms are usually something that might be actually a danger of the middle area because thunderstorms occur with the mix of humidity but also with like cold air kind of coming in. So we don't have much cold air, so maybe that wouldn't actually be a problem, but it is something we could explore if we wanted to add something a bit more scary.
Okay, so would it be more down on the surface of the earth, you're fine, the center of the earth, you're less fine, but you're still probably fine. But that middle point where there's this middle point where the mist just sort of ends that you do not want to build a house at.
Yeah, because lightning. Because you might. I don't know. Then, well, the thing is, like, lightning storms hit the bottom. The center
of the earth would be through the pillars, like on the inside of the pillars.
Yeah, the pillars. How big are these pillars?
Big enough to hold a whole bunch of round gondolas.
Yeah, but could you build houses in them too? Could you build entire cities in these pillars, or are they not quite that big?
I mean, they're big enough to stretch across the planet, so...
Yeah, but maybe not big enough long-wise, but I mean, like, width-wise. What we
maybe?
What?
I don't know. I mean, we can always say that they are.
Because I don't know why, but I imagine this thing where the gondolas are just floating over and you have houses along the bottom. So you're just looking down at the roofs of houses as you go along, and there's just people walking by, doing their shopping. Just having a nice time as the people are passing by the town.
That's totally possible.
It helps with transportation too, because those guys can just hop on the gondola. I mean, how would you hop on a gondola at that point? How would you make stops? How often does the gondola stop? Does it have like pit points?
When you reach your destination.
Well, the thing is, the way that these gondolas tend to work is that you're on it, and every time the person in front of you stops, you have to stop too.
That's true.
Yeah. Is this a long trip to the other side of the world?
Probably.
Bring snacks. I'm assuming gondolas have beds in them. Possibly.
Yeah, bring snacks like you do in the elevator.
Yeah, we're dismissing that. Uh, uh, so, like, would the gondolas then have, like, a mini little house almost type feel? Like a B&B? Or, not a B&B, the, air, bed and, I don't know, a place which has, like, a little kitchenette and a bed and a bathroom. It'd have to have a bathroom. Don't ask how the bathroom would work. I guess maybe once, I'd imagine once the...
As you're going through the gondola, it's like we have a toilet. Now, this toilet, whatever you do not flush it. We will empty it when we stop.
Or they could be, I don't know, maybe they're very green and they have the decomposing toilets. Maybe not, though, because they do have a lot of people using the toilets. It's probably be a bad idea. It'd probably overfill quite quickly. I'm imagining this. I'm imagining there's pit stops probably every, I don't know, say 20 minutes. 20 to 30 minutes, there's a stop, okay? And when the gondola stops, they connect to tubes that hold them in place and also hook up to the toilet and suck anything out. That's what I'm imagining. And then the gates open and the people leave, and it's all done automatically. No one thinks about it at all. And if there's nothing in the toilet, then there's nothing in the toilet. It just sucks up air. And then...
Okay, so at that point I have a very important question.
Yeah?
Where does the poop go?
Fertilizer? For their farms?
I don't think humans make very good fertilizer.
I don't know. Some people...
That's why we use cows.
Well, cows are better fertilizers. Yes.
Yeah, I think humans can make.
I mean, there's probably that stuff decomposes. So I'd imagine there's places it's sent to where it decomposes, and so every 20 miles has one, and it's also the city's connected to it too. So
20 miles. Okay, so what I'm thinking is,
or how many miles a 20-minute ride would be? I don't know how many.
I don't know. The problem is if you go only just a few miles, like 20 miles, up the pillar, the gravity's not going to change much, and you're still going to be falling down to the surface. You're not going to be, like, glued to the pillar. The pillar, especially because it's hollow, is not going to have all that much gravity.
I guess it is going up, so I'm trying to think, like, how houses would work.
Like,
I don't know, gravity confuses my brain.
Yeah, especially when we make worlds like this. It's like the asteroids world. The gravity is all over the place.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know, I guess I was kind of imagining, I don't know how these pillars' gravities work.
Yeah, this isn't Super Mario Galaxy.
No, you're right. So the pillars are kind of being pulled up, so how do you have cities on things I guess there wouldn't be cities in the pillars if...
maybe maybe at certain points in the pillars where the gravity is more balanced out.
There could be, in which case those would be the only places there's breaks.
Yeah.
And you could get off
the gravity would still feel very different, though.
Yeah, but people adjust.
Yeah.
And some people would have to live there if you build a city there, just because I'd imagine it's a long ride, so you have to live there if you want to make money off the tourists or visitors or whatever they are. Which I guess means that people would be living in the center. Because they'd have to. The people who are running the gondola things, they would have to live in the center where there's no gravity. So what does that do to those people who live there?
Well, upon re-entering a gravitational field pull thingy, there's a chance they'd injure themselves. They'd probably have a lot of trouble walking. Their whole bone structure would be extremely weak.
In other words, are they trapped in the center?
Maybe, because the humidity is so high, they're going to have trouble breathing because they're not used to humidity.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe there's not many people living in the center, but there's more people who just work at the center, but then live on the surface.
It could be like the space station. Where people are sent
an
off
escape from prison.
I was thinking it would be like the space station, where a few people would be set up for a couple months, and then they come back down, and when they're down, they have to go through vigorous training to make sure that the gravity doesn't mess them up too badly. Until eventually they might
Yeah.
also invent artificial gravity. Mind you, that's in the future. We're talking a few thousand years. But eventually they'll get to the point where they can have artificial gravity. Or they might come up with it sooner because there's more of a need for it. Like, this world doesn't have a need for artificial gravity. But I feel like this world, say 2,000 years in the future, of people living in the world, they might have reached that point just because there's more of a need for it, for space-wise maybe too, because they have limited... For one, it would help with their houses, with their rickety pillars, could be less likely to fall apart. They can start building maybe more cities in the tunnel with artificial gravity. So if we want to jump ahead 2,000 years in this world, we could have full-blown cities in these gondolo-type things because of artificial gravity. Like, what would having... Let's say they've invented artificial gravity. How would that change this world? Because I feel like it would dramatically change it.
Well, at that point, you could walk on literally any surface, and there would now be structures on all the different sides of the pillar, on the inside and the outside and dead center, the base. Everything now has the same amount of gravity, so the humidity and all the mist would just fill pretty much the entire world. If you wanted to, you could make increased gravity in the center. Or is like maybe if it only projects outward, you could actually pull the mist to the center, and then you could create like a sphere of cloud in the center. And then because this is what I was thinking about, that you could still do whether no matter where the clouds are, but because of all the clouds, it would actually probably be easier. Build some lightning rods, basically, that collect all the electricity that's being generated by the mist, and then that could actually power the gondolas.
That's actually... Or, like, anything else, too.
Or anything else, really. I'm just thinking the gondolas, it's right there. It's in the crystal.
I feel like that's one of the first things they'd start doing it, but I'd also imagine it would start powering the houses and everything else that lives just in the tunnel, which also means artificial lighting will become a thing in the sense of, like, light bulbs and stuff like that. Like, electricity and lighting in that sense will probably quickly develop, which would be interesting, which means how do they still live in a colorless, like, world, or are colors starting to become more prominent, or what would that affect their eyesight going?
I think that colors would become more prominent, like, over time,
especially if people start naturally selecting them, like for pets or something. They say, oh, this one's brighter, look, we put it under this light we've invented, oh my gosh, it's such a pretty color compared to that one, I'm gonna keep this one as a pet. And then, those, or I'm gonna mass breed these and just let that one live its life out, but we're gonna produce more of this color. And colors, I guess, would start coming back. I still don't think this is a world where colors are the biggest thing in the, like, as bright and brilliant, but I still think we can have some colors. But I find it a world where they, at least writing wise, I find it might be an interesting challenge to write a world where color isn't that important to people.
I mean, if I were writing it, I probably just wouldn't do much to acknowledge color, because unless it was a major plot point.
So would people, do you know how if your eyesight's not used as much, your other senses can tend to be heightened? Would that happen to the people here? Would we just would the people on this world be able to, like, hear and smell and feel things better than they could than see, since they haven't lost their sight, but their sight's a lot more limited until electricity shows up, that is.
Maybe a little bit, but I wouldn't think much, because one, their eyes adjust so that they can actually see around them, and two, there is lighting, and if you get like crystals that emit light, and you get one that you can just carry around with you, it's gonna basically act as a flashlight.
Do the crystals grow, or are they a finite source?
I would think they grow.
Okay, just what happened? Okay, so
which means if you hollow out the crystals, they're slowly gonna grow back, and one of the jobs somebody might have is to keep the crystals trimmed down, basically, like pruning the branches, except you're pruning rocks.
Okay, can we have, because I feel like this is a necessity, that once you separate a crystal, it has a limited lifespan, and eventually it goes bad and decomposes.
Yeah, it just sort of fades and dies.
Or else
like,
we just
as
have a world
battery.
where there's about 8,000 crystals in
Yeah.
disposed piles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just making sure the crystals decompose. We can move on. I'm trying.
And maybe the crystals, even though they're rocks, they're almost like a plant. Where, like you're saying, they decompose over time.
And they grow, too.
Yeah, and if you were to, say, prune the branches and take one crystal from the main crystal, being the center crystals, it'll eventually die and crumble and wither away. And also maybe these crystals, they have like this big root system going throughout the earth, and they sprout up in various locations, putting off, like, where there's these giant rocks that put off light, and you can harvest some from those.
Yeah, that would make sense. So
imagine carving one of those into a house.
Oh,
are the fanciest house ever?
Well, maybe that is a thing, because you could do that. We've talked about these people have the ability to carve.
Yeah,
I'm
but
imagining
this
the
house
crystals
would
aren't
also
that
require a lot of maintenance.
True, because it's growing and I mean, it's the same as some people who live in trees.
Yeah, I mean, if you live in a mansion and you're surrounded by a garden and everything, you gotta hire staff to keep garden under control and
I mean, but the thing is, this is also lower. This is the lower area, so I'd imagine they wouldn't. I mean, maybe. It tends to be lower.
Maybe there would be maybe occasionally you would find one, but for the most part, people avoid them because they're really impractical. They're hard to maintain, and they're in the lower levels where everything is humid, and it just makes more sense to turn it into a farm. So maybe it's like they exist. There's some people who say, yes, I want to do that, so they do it. But for the most part, no, people don't do it, and they just use it as a source of crystal.
Well, we got 10 minutes left, so I guess it's a good time to start talking about animals. How about our old classic favorite? We gotta talk about the birds. How the birds work.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure that these birds would be made of cotton candy.
I highly doubt that. So, how are I'm a little concerned about the birds, I'm not gonna lie, because of the just extreme gravity changes.
How do birds do in humidity?
Certain birds are fine. Rainforest is full of them. I'm not really concerned about humidity as much as I am concerned about the gravity situation.
Okay.
So bird, and also compass birds and a lot of animals actually would be affected by this, are like driven by an internal compass. Us humans are not, so we're not as affected by that as other animals are. But when the world is flipped inside out and shrunken like this world is, yeah, you kind of have your center point compass thing, but at the same time, I don't think compasses would work as...
I don't think that there would be seasons.
No, there's not. It's just humid. Which
yeah,
I guess
so
eventually
not,
people
migrating.
get... I'd imagine the people here would think, like, no different of it. Like, someone who spent their entire lives living in a rainforest doesn't think about the 100-degree heat and the fact they're constantly wet, unlike a person who's coming from... a nice cool area with 4 seasons. So these people wouldn't be fazed by it at all.
Most likely. And the birds, I think that like in regards to the gravity, they would there would be such a gradual change if they were flying upward that they wouldn't really notice it.
I think they'd adapt easily to it.
Also, the air becomes thinner. And I'm not sure if that's like a place where they would want to hang out, or if they could hang out there.
I guess they wouldn't. Yeah, I guess they wouldn't stay in the center, but they'd more. I guess birds would be in the middle.
I don't know. Think about our birds. Like they don't fly very high.
True, but this is a different world where they could fly all the way across, and not die.
Yeah, like if they really wanted to, they could absolutely fly all the way
across. And a lot
of
birds like to fly across big stretches of areas.
And it would actually become easier the further they went.
Also, I'd imagine there wouldn't be... We have different mixings of animals and birds and stuff just because we have different weathers and we have oceans separating us. That's not really a thing here. So, is it just... It's going to be the same animal species throughout the entire world, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't get
Like, I don't
as much
see why
variety as we would.
So I don't imagine there'd be
Also,
too many
if they don't
differences.
have oceans, there has got to be a ton of trees. Because the number one thing that produces oxygen for the world is in oceans. So,
I mean,
there got to be a
I
lot
thought
of
we already
trees.
established we have oceans, and that's one of
Well,
the
we were
things that's
thinking
coming off the
about it, but we were
mist.
thinking about the mist, or replacing them, kind of. And it just being just constantly misty, because it's almost too hot to keep, like, an ocean. Because you have water constantly going in the air, but it never cools enough, really, for water to go back to its solid state.
Yeah, but it's still got to get dense enough
Yeah.
eventually to go back to being a liquid. Like, that's how clouds work. Once you get enough water compact together in the clouds, it becomes a liquid and it falls down.
Well, we weren't really having clouds, were we?
No, but we're still having the mist, and if the mist were to get dense enough, it would become a liquid again.
Which means that the bottom layer would kind of, since everything's always misty and stuff, the bottom layer is either always an ocean or it's never really an ocean.
Everything's just damp, is what I imagine.
Well, yeah, I got that, but I don't think there'd be actual oceans.
Probably
Maybe
not. There might be
puddles.
lakes.
There could
I
be
don't know.
lakes. Maybe a lot of puddles.
Yeah.
But I feel like the water in this world is perpetually in the mist state, and you have to do like the towel trick and stuff to compress it to drink the water. Or maybe these people
Yeah.
have the ability to absorb water through their skin and drink it that way.
I
They're
mean,
just always
we
hydrated.
can, as the humans can already do that, but
So-
it's not very efficient.
Yeah, but in this world, I feel like it would be. Like, I feel like that
Probably.
would be
I mean, if it were
something.
humid all the time, we probably wouldn't be drinking nearly as much water as we do now.
Yeah. So I maybe absorbing water through the skin is something they do more than drinking it. So they're just always hydrated. They must have amazing skin. Either that or a lot of acne. It depends. I don't think there's an in between in this world. So, but they could absorb the water through the skin, which could be something. How does water then get to the upper areas that don't have the mist?
Well, you could, that could be a business where somebody collects water and then sends it upward through the crystals.
Okay.
There could be businesses where it's like, that's your job, collect water, and then somebody else's job is to transport it.
Yeah.
Somebody else's job is to set up a station where they sell it.
So water would be something that you'd actually have to buy in the upper area, where in the lower areas you just have and lots of it.
Yeah, in the lower area, it's like you just sort of absorb it and it's everywhere. Up in the higher area, in the crystal, you would need to purchase it.
Okay.
Maybe there's some sort of really long pump that goes up the
I mean, it's
crystal,
just
which,
along the
you
crystal.
know, everything in terms of engineering, like if we were going to put a pump in there, everything gets wonky when you throw in this weird gravity.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how well a pump would work.
Well, well, keep in mind the people start though on the lower levels, and eventually they get to the point where they make the gondola. And as they make the gondola, they're going to hit these problems and be like, "Oh, water, we still need that," and like figure things out. And it might just be a thing where they make it always misty, so like they spread mist to the top and let it float down, and the mist just gravitates to the lower levels because that's how water works. I think. And so it's just, they have
We're
a
not
tube.
scientists. Quick disclaimer.
Yeah, so they just have a tube that like shoots the mist up and then or blows the mist up. They might use a lot of air, vacuum type stuff. And then the mist just drifts down. So there's the mist. So for us, we think mist and humidity sucks and we hate it and we want nothing to do with it. But when you live in this world, you like the mist, you like being constantly wet. You feel sick if you're not. So you would actually, on this world, we try very hard to eliminate humidity and mist and like keep it out of our houses. In this world, you'd be working extra hard to bring it where it's not because you need it to survive.
I mean, there would still probably be a few areas where people intentionally remove the mist, kind of like how we have steam rooms.
Yeah.
But those would be like a luxury spa day, except it's the reverse of what we have.
Yeah, instead
Or
of...
or you just live in the center of the earth.
Yeah. That's my thoughts on that. we've got 2 minutes left. What do you want to end on?
I don't know. I think we did a pretty good job establishing
I think so.
this world, like, just 20 minutes in.
Yeah, but I think we've added some interesting details and talking about, because one thing about world development is that it's more than just describing a world, it's also describing how a world develops over time. So for a world like this, they go from just being stuck in the humid place, but eventually they bring themselves to the center and they're like drawn to it. And just depending on what timeline you want to be in a world, it's still always good to at least know the past of the world. Because I feel like if I wrote a story in this world, I would write it in this 2000 era, where they already have electricity and the gondolas and the mist systems, and you could have a really cool, interesting story coming in that world. But at the same time, it's really good to know how they got there, so that way you can explain that to your readers when it becomes important. Or also completely mess it up for your characters when you need to. And on that note, we're going to be saying goodbye. Bye!
Bye.